What's up, everybody? Metal Dave Glessner here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are joined by Plasmatics guitarist Richie Stotts, and this is a really special episode for me because, as many of you may know, the Plasmatics were the very first live band I ever saw in concert. I saw them in 1983 opening for Kiss on the Creatures of the Night tour. And as I was telling Richie in the episode, I was prepared to have my mind blown anyway because I was going to see Kiss, obviously going to blow my 16-year-old mind clean open,
This would have been 83?
83.
83.
Yeah, 83.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready for the big show. I'm ready for all the crazy pyro, the theatrics, the energy. But first I get treated to the Plasmatics. Whoa. Yeah, totally blew my mind, warped me forever. It explains a lot.
You were like it was Barnum and Bailey from hell.
Exactly.
That's where you were.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, in 83, I was at Raven and Metallica, and you were at Plasmatics and Kiss, and both were mind-bending.
Yeah.
And transforming your head to another place immediately.
Absolutely.
83 is a motherfucker.
Yeah, it was an amazing time. I mean, to say that the first band you ever saw was the Plasmatics, I wear that as a badge of honor now.
I commend you. It is a badge of honor. I mean, some people, and it's not their fault if they're young, some people's first concert was, I don't know, Def Leppard on Hysteria or whatever,
Or Barry Manilow or something.
Or whatever, something their grandpa took them to. And that's fine.
Right. That's great.
Fine.
Yeah,
but
there's
it
nothing
ain't
wrong
the
with
fucking
that.
Plasmatics.
That's right. That's right. It's not the Plasmatics. So
I mean, you could have. She could have dropped the chainsaw on your head. The shotgun could have had real shells in it.
Misfired. Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, the shit that those bands were doing, even in '83, you can't do anymore.
Oh yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
You couldn't get away with a lot of that stuff.
No.
And we hear a lot of great stories today from Richie about things you can no longer get away with.
Yep.
Plasmatics, of course, notorious for their onstage antics and their publicity stunts. And
great stories today.
Yeah, exactly. I met him in Austin last year when he made an appearance here
He's
in
so
town.
sweet. He's so nice.
Yeah. And he's going to be back October 19th. So anyone listening or watching this episode that's in the Austin area, he'll be in South Austin at Pallbearer Press on October 19th. He'll be playing with a local Plasmatics tribute band called Tits Out. That's right. You heard that correctly. Tits Out. I saw them last year. Richie didn't play with them last year, but he was in the audience and he loved it. And so they invited him back, and this year he's actually going to play with them. Also marking
I did a gig with them with Tits Out last year. It was Thunder Lightning, Thin Lizzy tribute, Tits Out, and Sad Wings, my Judas Priest tribute. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, what's happening, right? It was pretty authentic, actually, which scares me a little bit.
Yeah, right. Well, there's a reason Richie's willing to get up and play with them. It's because they do it right. It's because they do it right. So,
exactly.
That gig also marks the return of East Side Suicides, a local Austin band that hasn't played live, I don't think, in 20 years. They just released an album of old material that's been in the can or on the shelf forever and ever and ever. So anyway, if you're in the Austin area, October 19th, go see Richie Stotts at Pallbearer Press. But yeah, anyway, it was great to catch up with him. Great to talk to him. Lots of stories. It was an honor for me, the fact that was the first band I ever saw live. I can't believe that we've got this little podcast and Richie Stotts was on our show today. So,
well, here's a little Easter egg for you. Congrats to Bobby Landgraf on playing bass position for COC.
Oh, did not know that.
Well, take us out, Dave.
Breaking news. Breaking news. Well, I'm sure everyone will hear about it before this episode comes out.
Yeah, he said it's okay to mention at this point, but it's been in the works for a little while.
Congratulations to our friend Bobby.
People who have questions about that little snippet of news can read all about it somewhere else, just not here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, congratulations to Bobby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so today on the podcast, Talk Louder podcast, Richie Stotts from the Plasmatics.
Looking good. Got
There
your
you go.
Stones jacket on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
man.
I
Yeah.
no, I got this. Yeah, my Stones jacket.
Your
It's my
stuff. Well, that's what I'm calling it from here.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was wearing that when I met him. I think he lives in
Oh.
that jacket.
Oh.
It's my personality. I went to a Stones exhibit, a Stones thing in Winnipeg, Canada, and well, I do like the Stones, but this jacket fits me, and so that's why I always wear it. And
It's a good look for you.
That's a good reason to wear it if it
Yeah,
fits.
yeah.
You know what they say? I don't know if they say this. If the jacket fits.
Richie, thanks so much for joining us, man. I appreciate it, especially on short notice. Very kind of you to spend some time with us.
no problem.
I know you've got something going on in about 45 minutes, so we won't keep you. We'll jump right in and ask you, first of all, let's start with the current. You got any musical projects you're working on currently? What's happening in the world of Richie Stotts right now?
Well, I'm coming down to Austin in October 19th, and it's the Paul Bearer third anniversary party. They've invited me to come down. Craig Merritt runs that.
Yes.
And last year I was down there, as you know,
Yeah.
signing some autographs and made an appearance. And they've convinced me to come down and this time bring my guitar, and I'm going to play a few songs with the Plasmatic cover band, Tits Out.
Yes.
Susie Bravo and Steve, and I sort of been. I said, "Wow, these guys are great, and I can do this. I'd like to play." And they asked me back, and so that's what I'm doing now. And I haven't really played plasmatic songs in about 40 years with a band.
Wow.
And so I've been working on relearning or practicing these songs, and I'm surprised how fast they are. So that's what I'm doing.
Getting
That's
his
excellent.
chops up. Yeah, yeah.
It's a challenge. I'm excited about doing it. And I got a guitar case to bring it down on the plane. I was like, how am I going to get my guitar down there? All these logistic things I haven't thought about in a long time. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I saw you last year and Tits Out played then, and I was looking at you. You were in the crowd and you had this grin on your face that was ear to ear. I think you were you were taking photos and filming video. It looked like you were having a great time. And the fact that you're coming back, I think just sort of says it all right there.
there was a few people like kind of what do you call it, slam dancing, and I was thinking, oh, I should join, but then I better not fall over. I really had a great time, and it was sort of touching that you're playing these songs. I come down to Texas, and wow, there's a band that's playing Plasmatic songs. So, and I've been in contact with them, and I think it's great. I'm looking forward to it.
I would like to. I mean, obviously, I know the answer, but how many Plasmatics tribute bands do you know about?
I have not. Well, there was one here in New York a long time ago, and I play with them? I might have. No, I don't think so. There's a long time ago there was one, but I don't know any other bands that are Plasmatic cover bands. I think there's some other ones, but I haven't been keeping up on the Plasmatic cover bands. See?
Right. But I guess I was proving the point through your brain that it doesn't
happen every day.
Yeah, I mean, you could count them on one hand,
Yeah.
Right.
and that's also still keeps it cool. No one's gatekeeping the idea of a Plasmatics tribute. So
Well, these guys are actually, I think they keep the spirit right.
Oh yeah.
And Susie Bravo is a great, great character, great singer. I really think, I hope they go on and do some other stuff. You know, I know they do some other cover stuff too. And the band is really good. There's Omega and CC and Dave, the drummer, and Steve, the guitar player, and Susie. I think I got that right. I might be wrong, but I think I got that right.
Well, it was a lot of fun when you were here last year, and I was so glad to see that you're coming back. And there's also another band on that bill called East Side Suicides, which is making their return after, oh God, 20 years or something like that. Led by our own Frankie Nowhere here in Austin, Texas, who's a great front man himself. So it's going to be a great day, October 19th, for all of you in the Austin area. Richie's going to be on hand, playing some Plasmatics tunes, signing some autographs, etc. October 19th at Paul Bearer Press. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, Richie. What got young Richie Stotts hooked on rock and roll? What album or concert or whatever made you go, that's what I want to do?
I saw this picture today just on Facebook, and I saw a picture of Jack Cassidy and Yorma and Grace Slick and John Densmore at this Hollywood thing last year, some Hollywood Hall of Fame. And I always was like a big Jack Cassidy fan. I don't think too many people probably know who Jack Cassidy was, but he was the bass player for the Jefferson Airplane. I always loved him.
Yeah.
And so it goes back that far. It goes back to the days of the San Francisco Sound and Jack Cassidy and Yorma, and there was Blue Chair, and then there was well, this goes back to my high school. What I was inspired when I was a kid, and I was always just loved, you know, sort of, I don't want to say revolutionary rock and roll, but loud rock and roll that was a little bit different. And so what got me started was partially that, and partially just the love of, just wanting to be a guitar player. And I think I wanted to play the blues and stuff, but then I came down to New York and I realized I got to do something different. And I guess I'm a bit of an opportunist. When I came down here, and the punk thing had just started. I came down to New York like 73, 74, and CBGB just was starting. And I was like, I think I can do this stuff. I'm going to do it my own way.
Yeah.
And glad you did.
Yeah, that's just a short thing. I think I always wanted to be some kind of like actor, performer, guitar player.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you say you came down to New York, where are you coming from?
Yeah.
I grew up upstate New York. Well, people in New York City call it upstate, and upstate people call it, that's not upstate, but about an hour and a half north of New York, a small town. And I reached, if you go back far enough, I went to college when I left high school, and I quit. And I met some artists, and I came down to New York, and I was hanging out with them. So I kind of came from a lot of my friends were artists and sculptures and stuff. But that whole scene back then, the CBGB scene, a lot of those bands also had that same kind of arty feel. Like even the Ramones or Television and Blonde. There was more of a, well, it's the same thing probably now, but so I came down at that time, and then I got involved in the music business, and that led to me forming the Plasmatics.
How did you meet Wendy O. Williams?
I met Wendy. The long and short of this is I was approached by Rod Swenson, who was Wendy's partner, and Rod wanted to see me in a previous band, and he approached me and said, he wanted to put a band together, but he really didn't know how to put a band together, and he wanted Wendy to be the singer, and Wendy had never sang in a band or anything. He says, "Look, I just want to put a band together with Wendy the singer. If you could help me put a band together and start writing songs, you know," and I was like, "Sure, let's do it." You know, I was like a young kid at that time, and I was with an opportunity and I just went for it.
What did you see in Wendy? You said she wasn't really she had no background as a singer necessarily, but it seems obvious in hindsight, but when you're meeting her for the first time and no one knows who she is, what about her? What do you see in her that makes you go, yeah, I need to partner up with this girl?
I think that, well, it was I think she had a lot of excitement to want to do it. I don't think that I don't think any of us knew what was going to happen, and but that's a good question. It was, like I said, it was an opportunity to start the band, and Rod Swenson had somewhat of a vision in the sense that he wanted to put this band together. He said, "Oh, I got some money. We can do a demo." And I was willing to do anything. It was a gamble.
Yeah.
I mean, we were thrown together, and I kind of trusted him, and I trusted her. And
is she bringing lyrics in to in a rehearsal situation when you guys are putting songs together?
No, how the band was very structured, and it always was structured. So we had a manager, and Rod was working with me writing songs. So he said, "You write the music, I'll write the words, and I'll work with Wendy, and you work with the band." So the band would work up some songs. Rod would write the lyrics, and he would work with Wendy. Then we would come together, and we started. We were all new to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Even myself, I had a band before, but I was writing songs, and you're young kids. You're not really sure what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like when we first started playing, you get up on stage, and then you start learning, like, oh God, my guitar's. For instance, we get up on stage and we decided that we're going to play. All the songs started very fast. It's very short, and they were like 20. We came up with, we're only going to do 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Like a club would say, "Oh, you got to do 45 minutes, and you got to do 3 sets and stuff." Like we were like, "No, we're not. We're just going to do 25 minutes, and that's it." and then they would tell us that. But we didn't listen to them when we just did 25 minutes, and they were, "Oh, you're great. That's it. We want you to come back," because it was so chaotic and crazy and nutty. So I think we were learning as we went.
Okay.
Yeah. You said chaotic, and I think that's a perfect word. And, I've asked musicians on this show before, especially the theatrical type, the ones that put on like a really high energy show or a show that's full of props or whatever. And certainly you guys did that. And I've seen the photos of you with blood running down your forehead. What's the most serious injury you ever suffered on stage?
Well, okay, just like, for instance, the blood thing. This, like, the band evolved, even though there was no real master plan. Like, we didn't have a plan like, "Oh, I'm going to have a mohawk haircut and come out there." But, okay, like especially like in the beginning, okay, I think Rod came up with the idea of chainsawing the guitar at the end of this song we had called "Butcher Baby" at the end.
Yeah.
But I think, like, there was one of the shows, and I love Jimi Hendrix. I was you play the guitar behind your back.
Yeah.
So I was like, kind of did that, and I was like, oh, I started banging my head with the guitar, and I hit my head, and it was bleeding and stuff and everything, and so the next time we were talking about it, they said, well, Rich, you really don't need to bang your head to get the blood effect. That was a cool effect, but why don't you get some fake blood, So
spare yourself the headache.
in other words, it originated from like real blood, but then I would put the blood in my head. But then sometimes I would actually still hit my head, it would bleed, and then the blood would get mixed up with the real blood. So the most serious injury, I had a few injuries. Wendy shot me one time with the shotgun. There was these speaker cabinets in the back that would blow up, and Wendy would shoot the shotgun, and they would blow up, And she missed one time, shot me in the leg. We used to have TVs on the stage. I got infected by landing in the TV glass. But there was danger on the there was danger on the stage. Like there was this big club. It was actually a big opera theater on 14th Street called the Palladium, and it was one of our first shows where we blew up a car. And usually you had to have a major record deal to play there, but we were creating so much energy in New York that Ron Delzer, the promoter, he promoted at Madison Square Garden and everything. We got booked in there to do this show. And I think Mitch Ryder was opening for us.
Wow.
One of those things was a mismatched type of thing. But we had a Cadillac that was driven onto the stage, and this was our first time we were going to blow up a car on stage. And how we did it was like you drive the car on, and then the guys would sort of cut it up a little bit, cut the fenders off, cut the hood off, cut the roof off, and then kind of reassemble it. But underneath it all were these like big cannons. They're like maybe a foot. Like you put flash pots in, but heavy duty. And so when Wendy would come up and throw the dynamite, like first time we did it, we were playing it, we throw the dynamite in the car, and the car exploded. But all the pieces were held together by chains. So like if the front fender blew out, it would blow out, but just was like boom,
Yeah.
But I think the thing on the hood, it broke or something, and it was a big stage, a big high stage, and when it happened, the hood went way up in the air, and there was smoke, and I was like, "Where's the hood?" And then like there was silence, and it came down. And the reason there was silence, here's another thing, was like a private Ryan moment. And because the speakers on all our amplifiers got blew up.
Oh.
So we learned from that. And then we learned that, the Marshall regular Celestion speakers are too weak to hold that explosion or implosion.
Right.
And so we swapped them out for these very expensive EVM Altec Lansing speakers, and they actually were able to hold the explosions. But all that stuff, going back to what you're saying, we learned on the road. We even learned from experience. I remember Tommy Ramone came to the show, and I said, so what did you think? I was all excited. Like, what'd you think of the band? He says, you got to get another guitar. I go, what do you mean? He says, you can't be tuning up on stage. You need a second guitar. And then I was like, really? Okay. So I had to get another Flying V,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a word like mother of necessity. So
necessity is the mother of invention.
Right. The reason I play Flying V's was because I'm a lefty, and they're easy to switch over, and they're light. I started off with a Les Paul upside down with the cutaway on the top if you play guitar. So I got the Flying V, and I go, oh no, I got to get another Flying V. So I got two Flying V's. And then Tommy came again. He says, well, now that you got two, you should have a third one. You know what I mean? But actually, he was right, because things are happening fast. You break a string and something like that. And actually, one of my flying V's are having repaired right now because way back in the day, I broke the neck so many times. I used to the headstocks were broken, and on the road, I would just take epoxy and just a 5-minute epoxy and put the headstock back on. It was like glass; it would snap off. That's, like people talk to me like guitar tech stuff, and that's my guitar tech stuff. And going back to the backup guitar, you have a backup amp too. You got to have a backup Marshall.
That's right.
Backup Marshall. And nowadays, like if I go see a band now, like I saw a band recently, some young kids. There's some really good bands now. They got all this stuff down. They got the guitar tuning down. They got the backup amps. They got the backup guitar. Like way back then, people didn't do that stuff. It was like you learn as you go.
Yeah, yeah.
And that goes with the stagecraft, you know.
Was there ever a stunt that you guys discussed in a meeting that you thought was just too there's just no way somebody's going to get killed? Or did you ever like cross something off the list and say, no, we can't do that?
Yeah, there was things that we tried. Like, well, this was one of the things I thought was good. You know, like I was telling you about the shotgun when he would like turn around and shoot the she would shoot the maybe shoot the speaker cabinets, they would blow up. And then we said, well, if we put a box up above the stage, we put like we had chickens. We put actually live chickens up there, and so you would shoot the thing, and the chickens would fly all over the place. It didn't make any sense really, and we did that for a few times. But there was a couple problems. First of all, when the chickens land down on the stage, they just sort of stay on the stage running around. The people, unless you're way in the back, unless way in the front, you really don't see them. Right. And we did one show where the chickens just got out in the audience, and a few of them got killed or dead, stomped. And Wendy was really upset about that. But what I was doing at the time, well, this is the funny things we used to do was I would go to this place, like one of these places, like there's like, and like I don't know how to say this, but like a Chinese place, Asian place where they would sell the chickens in New York. You could buy live chickens and stuff, you know. A lot of more Asian places. So I worked a deal out with the guy where I'd buy the chickens, and I put we did a couple of shows over the weekend, and brought the cage. I put it up on the roof, and then after each show, I'd put them back in the cage and bring it back up to the roof. And then on Monday, I'd bring it back and sell them back to them. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
but we did it. That's not really documented in any stuff that we did or videos, but we did a much more dangerous thing on there. We did a pier show. They still do. They had these old piers on Hudson River. You can never do this now. I mean, this 1979. There's a video on YouTube. I think it's the Pier 62. There's two videos. One's Dr. Pepper, and there's Pier 62. But this one we actually built, and along with the road crew, we all built a stage at the end of the pier. That's number one. And then we had all these amplifiers in the back that were a lot of them were phony and everything like that, but it looked like a big concert. So we had the stage for a couple of days. We were just out there, like people weren't even. We told the fire department we're making a movie, so they let us go, and they didn't really care. So we built this stage, and we built a ramp up there. And underneath the stage, the sound. This guy got fired for this, but because we didn't. There were supposed to be explosions. The plan was we'd play a couple songs. Wendy would jump off the stage and run to the front of the pier and get in the Cadillac and drive a Cadillac towards the stage. And as she got near the stage, she would jump out, and as it hit the stage, it would all blow up and everything like that. But he was supposed to have some kind of, some kind of pyrotechnical thing that legal and stuff that would blow up. He had just put these, I don't know what you call them, 10-gallon, 50-gallon drums or whatever, those things, the big drums.
Yeah, like an oil drum.
He had the oil drums and he just cut them in half, and he had them like about 5 or 6 of them underneath the stage.
Holy shit.
Filled with gasoline.
Oh my God.
So my manager found out of it, found out about it right before the show. And so he didn't fire him then, but he got fired after the end of the show. And so as the car came up the ramp, it was supposed to come up the ramp, blow up, come up, blow up, and go through the amps and hit all the sandbags and stop at the end. But it just kept, well, first of all, it blew up, and it was a good explosion, I'll have to admit. It looked, and by the way, we came in on a helicopter,
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but it blew up and it landed into the Hudson River. But on top of it, we had told the fire department and the police department that this was going to be for a movie, but we didn't tell them that we posted all over the city that it was going to be a free concert. Yeah. So all these people showed up. There was about 20,000 people all along the lines of the pier, and they're watching the whole thing. And my parents came, and then we got the news stations came, and it was like that. It was real chaos. And if you could never do anything like that. And when the car, by the way, went over the stage, it went through the sandbags, and we just all ran and it went right into the river. We all watched the car just sinking into the river. It's still there.
The car is still there in the river?
Oh, I guess so.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So did you guys, having said that, it occurred to me, did you guys ever have a band meeting and say, you know what, the stunts might be overshadowing the music. Maybe we need to rein it in and let the music sort of take center stage? Or were you thinking, hey, as long as people are paying attention, we're winning?
Well, I think it went hand in hand. I think the music was reflective of this chaos, this of what we were doing. I mean, as the guitar player, musician, I have to defend the music, and I feel that the music kind of the chicken and the egg, which came first. And I'm upstairs working on, like right now, I'm working on about 5 songs that we're gonna do. Hopefully, I'm gonna do with the band down in Austin. And I'm going, damn. Whether you like this music or not, it's hard to play.
Yeah.
I mean, and it really is. There was a craft to it, and we really worked hard. And we did one album with Jimmy Miller, who produced the Stones album, and that was New Hope for the Wretched, which is more punky. Then we did another album, which is starting to move into maybe a more metalish direction. And then another EP which even went more metal. Dan Hartman was one of the producers, and Dan
was that Metal Priestess.
Yeah. And Dan played with the Edgar Winter Band, and he did the whole solo stuff. And but he was a great musician. He used to tell me, like, oh man, if you were out of time with Edgar Winter, he'd come over and he had these pointy boots, and he would just kick you. You know what I mean? And then we did the final album with Coup d'etat with Theater Jerks, which was more metal. But all those records were really well done, and I think they're really good. And I actually, the last few weeks, I've come to really appreciate, like, man, this stuff's really good, because it was well done, and whether you like it or not, it's not easy to play.
Yeah.
How did you get hooked up with Dieter Dierks for Coup d'etat?
Dieter's famous for the Scorpions and Accept
German metal bands. Yeah.
Right.
We did it. We were going to do it. We did do an album with Capitol Records, the last one, Coup d'etat, that I was in with the band. So the plan was that Dan was going to hopefully do that album, and they liked, the record company makes a big decision on all this stuff, and we liked Dan, and we worked up all the songs with Dan and did a full demo at Electric Ladyland Studios, which was very good. But the record company decided they wanted to go with another producer. And we all, I remember we were all listening to different producers. And I kind of felt bad that Dan wasn't chosen. And so we went with Dieter Dierks. But the funny thing is there's another record recently released, well, not recently, but maybe the last 20 years, called Coup de Grace, which is the Dan Hartman version of Coup d'etat.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah.
So like once you get into like the big labels and stuff, there's a lot of decisions that are, well, first of all, you're in a band. People go, oh, why don't you do this? And you have a certain amount of voice, but it's a cutthroat business, but it is.
Decisions are being made for you.
Well, yeah, decisions are always being made for you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're always being,
It's no secret.
Yeah.
even if you're like Bruce Springsteen, he has to
Sure.
But
Sure.
you try your best and you fight hard for it. I love working with Dan, but working with Dieter was a great experience too.
Did you record in Germany with him?
Yeah, we went over. We went over to Stammeln, Germany. It's outside of Cologne.
Cologne.
Yeah.
Bern. And we were there for about, a couple, like 5 or 6 weeks. And it was a real experience. And he's like a real taskmaster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure. He's been he made a lot of records, that guy.
Yeah.
So, but you learn something from all these guys.
Oh, yeah.
And even going back for the original Plasmatics, we worked with, actually Tommy Ramone is a producer with Ed Stasium, who produced the Ramones. And so all these little things you learn. I remember Ed's going back to the beginning. I remember Ed Stasium used to like the mix in mono. And I go, what do you mean mono? And he says, I just like mono. So you can listen to it under car radio, So then you start listening, you go, oh yeah, I see what you mean. So those sounds, this is like Phil Spector mentality,
right? But
so the sound sounds great on a single speaker. Nowadays everything is not done that way, But there's something nice about the Ramones. By the way, the Ramones' first album, it's an interesting thing. If you listen to it, maybe but if you listen to the first album, you can do this in any album, but the first album is so pan left and right, the bass and the guitar, like the bass is older on one side and the guitar is on the other side and the drums are right down the middle with the vocals. And but then when you listen to it on stereo, you're not quite aware of that, but if you go, oh wow, that's why they kind of had this sound,
Yeah.
And then because they're such a simple band, it kind of worked.
Right.
Yeah, like Van Halen recorded that way, and the Beatles recorded that way. And you can get Stones and Beatles records in mono versions. There's a bunch of versions of them. But I think it's interesting. A lot of people don't realize, well, they would just be called young in my book, where your car radio had one speaker. It was in the middle of the dashboard. That's it. They weren't in the doors. There wasn't a left and a right. It was one speaker right there in your face.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you start being around these people and you start picking up things. Oh, wow. You mix this way. for the average person and actually the average musician today, they understand that. But when I was like, this was all new, you know, you learn as you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Let me ask you this and bear with me. I know this is going to sound crazy, but was there ever any talk of continuing the Plasmatics after Wendy passed away? And I know it sounds absurd because you can't replace Wendy O. Williams, but people also said the same thing about Bon Scott and Ozzy Osbourne and David Lee Roth. Was there ever any discussion, especially maybe in later years when sort of the Plasmatics legacy even grew over time? Was there any discussion like that?
I mean, people have like approached me and everything. It would be very difficult. I think it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You'd have to get, first of all, you'd have to get, I mean, who would be the band? I mean, there's myself and there's Wes. There's two different drummers right now, Stu Deutsch, the original, and T.C. Tolliver in the coup d'etat era. Who would you choose? There's Chris Romanelli from the coup d'etat record and Jean Beauvoir. I mean, I don't know how it would really come about, but how do you replace Wendy? I mean, how do you do that?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I just threw it out there because I know a lot of people thought the same thing when other bands that had very iconic singers that you thought there's just no way you can continue without them. And they somehow did and even had some success. I wanted to ask you also, I told you this when I met you in person, and Jason knows this story. The Plasmatics are the very first live band I ever saw in my life because you were touring with Kiss at the time on the Creatures of the Night tour. And I remember Riot was supposed to be the opening band, and for some reason they canceled and they were replaced by the Plasmatics. And I remember at that time being so upset because I wanted to see Riot and I didn't want anything to do with this quote unquote punk rock band. And today I love punk rock. But you talk about being corrupted right from the start. I mean, I was going to see Kiss, which would have been mind blowing enough. But you guys beat them to the punch. So the Plasmatics are the first live band I ever saw in my life. And you're out doing arenas with Kiss. And now for Kiss at that time, that was not one of their, go ahead. You have something?
Yeah, no, nothing. Go ahead.
So Kiss at that time, that was not one of their better selling tours. But for you guys, it might have been the first time that you're out in arenas. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
So,
we never opened for band. That was the first time we ever opened for band.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, do you remember being treated well on that tour at all, or do you recall? Or?
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, they were very nice. Everything was really good. I mean,
were you guys fans of what they? Were you guys Kiss fans?
I had, to me, like Kiss was like, they were so big, and I remember when we started the Plasmatics. This was around 1978, 79. I remember they played the Garden. I was watching them on TV. I said, "Oh my God, this is so amazing!" It's like theater, you know?
Yeah.
See them, and so I always appreciated that theatrical side of them, but I was never part of the Kiss Army.
That's fair.
Yeah, I was never part of the Kiss Army, and I had never gone seen them. But I loved seeing the show. I mean, I loved the Gene's bass solo. They were just great. He'd come out, he'd go make the noise. It was just by himself. The stage would go dark. It would be this feedback from the bass, and I didn't know what was going. It was like what in Japan, like that kabuki theater type of thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he would point to one side of the stage, and this giant flame came up. I thought it was great, but we had him on a couple of things though. I remember, and this is no knock on Kiss. I remember saying I think it was Vinny Vincent was playing guitar, and I was watching them do sound check, and they had a line of Marshalls and amps, and I was like, oh man, they're making a mistake. they're not paying attention to details, because during the sound check, the lights hit the back line of the amps, and you could see right through.
Yeah. Dummy phony amps. Yeah.
How could they miss it? Because what we did, we had phony amps too, but we had only a couple. Speaker captures, we knock them over at the end of the show. And, they were so funny. I would go around and take truck logos off of trucks, or some kind of logo, like white trucks. You ever heard of white trucks?
Yeah.
You know white trucks?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I unscrewed a few of them and just screwed them into my amp. And I remember I did that with another something else from the stereo speakers. And we'd get calls like, "Oh, where'd you get those white amps from?" But what I did, though, was I had a speaker cabinet, but I opened them up and I took some plywood and just covered those speaker cabinets.
Yeah.
So, like, nobody, if you looked in, you'd
It's
see.
dark. Yeah.
It's dark. And
Yeah. It's covered up.
So I think it might have been Vinny. I said, "Hey, you're missing that." And he kind of chuckled, but I don't think they did anything about it. I don't think they cared,
Nah.
They didn't. They probably just ordered a bunch of Marshall speaker
Empties.
I was talking to this guy. It's funny that came up because we used to change all these guitars on stage, right? And people go, "What type of guitars were you? You trained?" We got letters and Guitar Player magazine and Rolling Stone. There was letters to the editor, something about the Plasmatics cutting up perfectly good Les Pauls, and how could they do it? First of all, who cares? What we were doing, we were buying these guitars from this store uptown here in the city, and they were like, some of them. I met the guy the other day, and I said, "Well, what were those guitars?" He said, "Montoya." They were just cheap guitars.
Yeah.
People would take the guitar parts and take out the humbuckers or cheap humbucker pickups. Yeah, I took those pickups out and put them in my guitar. They're great stuff. So, in other words, this was the fun of the band. But so at the time, I remember, this is my memory, I remember like taking a magic marker out and blocking out Montoya, and I had decals, Gibson decals I was putting on the top of the guitar. So it looked like a Gibson guitar. And I always told people, "Oh yeah, in my mind, I thought I had written to Gibson and they had sent them to me." So I talked to this guy who sold us the guitars. His name is Steve Friedman. He had a store called We Buy Guitars. And I said, "Steve," first of all, I said, "What was the name of those guitars?" He says, "Montoya." And I said, "What's the story? Do you know anything about those decals?" He says, "Oh, yeah, they were like bootleg decals I had bought, but I didn't know what to do with them, so I just gave them to you." So,
I see.
Well,
and you can still buy those decals online. You can just buy them.
Oh, you can? Are you serious?
You just gave him an idea.
No, this is not an SG. It is not a Gibson. That's a decal. Look at the headstock. You can tell it's not a Gibson.
So we had.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
That's a sticker.
Yeah. Now, not all of the guitars were Gibson lookalikes.
Okay.
And like we had Fender lookalikes. We didn't have the Fender decals, but for the Gibson ones, we did the thing. So, like, I think there was a certain amount of with the band. I mean, there was, it was theatrical, but there was a lot of fun and playfulness in the band. And I mean, there was a certain edginess, like there might something bad could happen, like something could fly out and hit something, and people did get hurt. I mean, I jumped in the audience one time. I hate to say it, I broke a girl's nose, right? And she was going to sue, which she should, but I don't know whatever happened to it. I think the club covered it. But I mean, things did happen like that.
Yeah. Well, you were a chaotic band. That's for sure. There's no question about that. And I want to respect your time. We're at the 45-minute mark, unless you have a few more minutes. I know you've got an obligation after us, so
Yeah, well, we still got a couple minutes, you know. I mean, if you don't, yeah, we can go for a couple more minutes if you have a couple more questions.
yeah, I was. Go ahead,
real
Jason.
quick. I was just going to say, I feel like I want to give a little bit of credit to what you guys created, by way of you know, in the mid '80s there was this new genre, if you will. It was just a box people started putting music in called crossover. And, you know, by the late 70s, I feel like you guys, and there was some other people, definitely the Sex Pistols, because Never Mind the Bullocks to me is a kick-ass, high-energy rock and roll record. There's not one riff on Bullocks that's not just a kick-ass Steve Jones rock and roll guitar riff. And I feel like you and what you guys sort of, you know, sewed together with obviously some great minds. I didn't realize that Rod Swinson, I don't read Wikipedia, but I've heard Rod Swinson's name in the past, and I didn't know that he was kind of a mastermind, like the Pistols had a mastermind too, like kind of put together this band. But it really worked well. And me being a Kiss fan and just a 70s hard rock, a Queen fan, an Elton John fan, and Black Sabbath and whatever, you guys really put together some great things. And I feel like, and you've already mentioned your records evolved. You guys evolved a little bit as you went along, and it got bits of extreme kept happening. And I feel like that's how crossover eventually started to become called. Well, we can't just call it hard rock anymore. You know what I mean? This is barely rock and roll anymore because it's got all this chaos on top. So, and it's not just punk rock either. I don't feel like what you guys and what you and Wendy helped create together as the Plasmatics was really a punk band. The attitude was punk, but I feel like you guys were progressive, not as a genre, but you know what I mean? You guys were really breaking molds, and my hat's off to you. I've always appreciated that.
Thank you. And I have to just say thank you. That was so nice that you said that, because I feel like even when, well, hold on a second. Oh, wait a second. My battery's going to go dead here.
Oh, get your charger.
Where is the battery charger? Okay, hold on 1 second. Hold on.
Yep, do your thing.
All right. My wife in the background telling me, you like stunt? What I wanted to say is I agree with you. And one of the problems in a way I had when we were playing was I didn't consider like, oh, punk rock. Like I didn't really consider it's really a punk rock. I would have to leave.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. That
Yeah.
you're not setting out to be this one thing. You're setting out to destroy. You know, you're
an experiment.
Yeah.
And even like when we went into coup d'etat and stuff, like, oh, you're heavy metal. And I always wanted to be the Plasmatics. You know, I felt like that's the defining thing. And I think the music, like I love the Ramones and I love like something like those early bands, but not to get technical, but like, I mean, everybody plays 1-4-5, but they were playing their sound was way. I mean, some of our stuff is a little bit like that, but I think we were trying to do more of a blues or even blues is not the right thing, but not playing typical sort of I don't want to say typical, but we were trying to explore stuff, you know, listen to stuff, and you know, you're playing loud music, and it lends itself to, you know, playing kind of metalish sounding stuff and everything, but it doesn't have to be metal, you know.
I mean, Motorhead is not metal. Motorhead is blues.
Exactly. There's a song that we have upstairs. I mean, I'm up and upstairs. I'm playing right now called Master Plan, and it's kind of a fast, kind of it has a little bit of a Motorheadish sound. But
I know Master Plan.
Yeah, and I remember Lemmy actually played that song with Wendy on the 45. Remember, Lemmy was telling me, "Oh man, I really like that song, Master Plan." And I thought, because it does sort of have it's in A, and it's like it has that sort of groove, and I love that type of bluesy rock.
Yeah, that's got like a shimmy to it. That's Motorhead. That's what he does.
I'm glad that we're bringing up Motorhead, because Motorhead gets a lot of the credit for bringing the punks and the metalheads together. Yes. And I would say the Plasmatics did exactly the same thing. Absolutely. And you might not get the notoriety for doing that Motorhead did, but there's no question that you sort of bridge that gap between the punk rock audience and the heavy metal audience. And I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude for that, because as Jason said, there might not be bands like SOD or the Cro-Mags or DRI and things like that whole crossover genre.
Right.
If it wasn't for a band like the Plasmatics, it was sort of merging that chaos with that speed and creating what at the time was a brand new genre. So a lot of the music we love can trace its roots back to the Plasmatics.
I think 79 and 80 are very important years for what we're talking about, this kind of movement. 79 and 80 are very volatile and important at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I always felt, I mean, I don't want to knock New York down either. I mean, I like New York, but like CBGBs, everybody loves CBGBs and everything like that. But, we weren't Blondie. We weren't, television. We weren't, phones and stuff. And I mean, I always said that there's a lot more rock outside of New York, but that's another story, actually. I don't.
Well, I've always loved New York bands.
Okay. I don't mean to put them down.
You're not. He mentioned Riot. We love Riot.
Oh, yeah.
Riot.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Jason, Neil Smith from the Alice Cooper Band played drums on one of the Plasmatics albums. We had Neil on the show one time, and he talked about that a little bit. I thought that was really cool.
He did, because after our first album, and we did this tour, and then our drummer left, Stu Deutsch. He left, and we were ready to go into the studio to record our second album, which is called Beyond the Valley in 1984. And we were didn't have a drummer, and we were kind of scrambling. And Neil did the record. He came in like a pro and did it really quick. I mean, like a bit of a ringer, But then we wanted him to be in the band, but it didn't really work out. Like, I don't think it was the requirements were meeting what he wanted. But I love Neil. And by the way, he's another guy I'm still in touch with and talk to every once in a while. And, we get along great. He's very tall, like I am.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not used to people really tall. So when somebody's really tall, it's like, wow.
How tall are you? You are tall. How tall are you?
About 6'6".
Yeah.
But I'm shrinking now. I'm shrinking now. Yes, like
6'5" now.
Yeah, well, I'm like 6'5" and a half.
So with some boots and the mohawk, how tall were you?
Yeah,
7'5".
Well, when we started, I had these. I had these blue. I got them up on St. Mark's. These really cool blue shoes. They had these heels and stuff, and they were impossible to. Well, they were good. I mean, I was young. I could jump around and hang out with them. But then I moved but I got rid of them and I moved to. Here's another thing. I said, forget about these things. And they got wrestling boots.
Oh, fun! Yeah.
Except don't step on any glass with wrestling. So watch out.
Because there's no sole on them. They're like ballet shoes, right? So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. They're
And there's always glass on a plasmatic stage.
Yes,
So.
there is.
glass and
Hey, have you ever heard of, or do you remember a band? They're from the '80s, but they're still active, from Florida, called Nasty Savage.
I've heard of them.
Yeah,
But yeah.
their singer Ronnie, Nasty Ronnie, he befriended Wendy, and Wendy would. I think Nasty Savage was in the late '80s, mid to late '80s. They were touring with like a bigger band, and I can't remember who it was at the time. But like the headliner was back there, and Wendy O shows up at the backstage door and comes in, and the headliner was all, "Oh, cool, Wendy O's here," and she beelined right past these rock stars, is Nasty Ronnie, and who were the piddly opening band, and went and gave Ronnie a big hug and hung out with Ronnie and Nasty Savage all day in their dressing room, and the headliner was like, "Who the fuck are these guys opening for us tonight?" And I just thought that was the fucking coolest thing. And they have a lot in common. I don't know if when I say Nasty Savage, anything really comes to mind, but Ronnie smashes TVs on his fucking head every night.
Okay.
He cuts himself all up. He wears masks, and he acts like he's talking to a ghost, and he lays down roses like they're dead, and he misses them, and all this. It's fucking crazy. And they have a brand new record out. They've been around for 40 fucking years. He's going to be on our show here in a few weeks. And anyway, just wanted to bring that up because it had the Wendy connection.
We'll tell him I said hello.
I will. Yeah. I will. He'll freak out. He loves that shit, and he still loves Mrs. Wendy and still loves the Plasmatics. He'll love it that we talked to you today.
Yeah. Richie, thank you so much for your time, man. I know we've kept you a little longer. Yeah. Hey, we'll look for you in Austin. Just a reminder to viewers and listeners, those of you in the Austin area, Richie will be in Austin, Texas, October 19th at Paul Bearer Press in South Austin, signing autographs, playing with Tits Out, the Plasmatics tribute band from here in Austin, Texas. And I know that's going to be a great time. So if you're in the neighborhood, go check it out. Go say hi to Richie. And thank you so much for your time today, man.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really had a good time.
Oh, good. We love to hear that. We love to hear that.
Okay.
We try not to make
it to you, both of them. It was an easy conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun. We make it
that.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guest today, Richie Stotts on the Talk Louder podcast.